It's time for story number 38. Story number 38. My name is Phil, and you are listening to The Lip. All right, everybody. Today is February 11th, about 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I'm doing a morning show today. That's just the way it worked out because, well, it's a Tuesday right now, this February 11th. Last night, I was considering doing a show. However, I had to reschedule my thinking as a result of the fact that, well, I was watching Monday Night Raw. And at the end of Monday Night Raw, I said to myself, do I feel like doing a recording tonight? Answer, nah, we'll just do it in the morning. And thus, here I am right now doing story number 38. Should be a fun one. I think that these stories are, whew, I think they needed to be told. And I believe that looking at most of them, I think that, well, especially the one, I've given it enough time to breathe and enough space for it to give myself a little bit of distance. Yeah, one of them I need a little bit of a little distance in order to tell the story. I initially thought about just doing this as a short, this one particular story, and then I realized, nah, it's kind of a fun one to tell, and I think I will tell it, but I want to give some time in between. And so that time it's moved on. It's been a couple of weeks now, and I think it's been long enough, and a lot of the elements to the equation for the story have sort of resolved themselves. So I think it's safe to tell the story right now. Although with my heart, I'm thinking I want to tell it a week before I'm telling it now. But with my head, I know that maybe I should push this story even, I don't know, story number 39 or 40. But I'm going to tell it anyway because I want to make sure that it is as fresh in my mind as it possibly can be. A little bit of smoothie right there. I just got to tell you, that's the first time I made a smoothie in a couple of years. And boy, of anything that I miss about being a gym rat, it's making my fruit smoothies. And boy, I definitely was right on with this one. But anyway, going back to stories, I can tell you that I'm excited about this episode, but there is definitely a part of me that's really, really, really excited about the story that I'm going to tell in May. And I think I've reiterated it a few times of just how excited I am about telling this story and how many pieces there are. I keep going over saying it and saying it and saying it. Essentially, I'm trying to get you interested in an episode that's not going to come out for like 3 months. I'm really trying to sell this episode because realistically, like I said, it was too big. It was almost the National Treasury episode of stories for me. Like Nicolas Cage had that treasure in the first National Treasury that was so big that no one person should have it all. That's kind of the way the story is. There's so many pieces to it, and I can't tell it all in one spot. But the more and more I think about it, the more excited I get about it. To the point where I'm actually even considering maybe even writing it down and putting it in book form. Because even when I tell the story on the show, there's going to be parts of it that I'm still not going to have all of the story told. So just maybe that could be something that I might consider. Speaking of considering things, it's time to fill in the blanks. And, well, like I said, it's February 11th, 2025. The Super Bowl was a couple of days before. I'm going to simply say that fill in the blank question is going to be, am I happy about the winner of the Super Bowl? And I can simply fill in the blanks by saying yes and no. Horrible answer to it, yes, I know. But yes and no. I'm happy about the winner of the Super Bowl. Because, well, before I go into my final pick episode, which is going to be the end of the show, I told you that I really didn't want either of these teams to win. One of them had to. Admittedly, I am very pleased to know that one of them was suffering tremendously at the other's expense. That's the only bit of joy that I get out of the Super Bowl. I knew that one of those teams was going to have a hard time, and I'm glad that that team did. It wouldn't have been any different to me if the other team had suffered just as badly as the loser actually did. However, I will say I didn't have a dog in the fight, but I kind of had a dog in the fight. I'm real happy for a friend of mine because he was having a kind of rough year that I'm not going to get into. And admittedly, I think that that game certainly may have just even for a little while made his year a little bit better. I'm happy for that at the very least. So once again, am I happy about the winner of the Super Bowl? And again, the blanks are filled in by saying yes and no. All right, I'm going to ring the bell and I'm going to tell you a tale of a fateful trip. Not really. Well, actually, really, this one is kind of a tale of a fateful trip. Um, both of these, in fact, all of these involve vehicles in some manner of form. Sorry, give me just a second. I gotta have a little bit more of this smoothie. It's really good. Just, it really is. Mm, 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 mm. Sorry, I hate to break up the monotony of not drinking this thing. I need to drink it, but I'll tell you about that smoothie another time. These stories all have an element of automotive travel, and they all are connected in that sort of way. If there was a little bit of thread that went through all of them, it would be I had to drive or something was involved with driving on all these stories. Where am I going to begin? Because truthfully, the main event today of the main event could be any of these three stories. If I picked another easily, I could have matched all three of these stories in this episode with two others, and the one that I would tell last would be any of these three. They would have been the big one at the end of any show that I did, because all of them are that kind of story this week. So instead of having a double main event, really, it's a triple main event, and I'm struggling with exactly which one I want to go with as the final story. These are all kind of interesting. I think I'll go with, well, we'll go with this one because, yeah. I'll go here. Now, I've said many a times that I live on a corner, and there's a school just a little bit farther down the road, not too far, maybe a block away. And clearly, there's always between the end of August and the end of June, lots of people parking on the sidewalk around the fence of my house on the sides that they can, because, like I said, I'm on a corner. So they park on two sides of my property. Now, having said that, I've come to accept the fact that these teachers are going to park there. And they will also have parents who will park all up and down that street when they're dropping their kids off. but they usually always take off afterwards. So for me to be overly surprised to see a vehicle parked on the sides of my house is, well, like most people. I mean, there's legal parking there. I mean, there's nothing that says you can't, and they're not literally in my driveway. So what am I going to do about it? Nothing. Just let them park there, right? And just move on with my day. The story isn't about those people who park there during the day. It's about some people who park there at night. Let that sink in. Not the normal traffic from people who are going to and fro to school, but these people, it's been two different cars. One specifically that has gotten on my radar, and not to go too deep into the vehicle, I'm not going to give you VIN number and license plate, but I will say that this vehicle stands out to the point where it becomes just blatant that it's there. It's not like your run of the mill gray, blue, red, black, white, silver, uh, champagne colored gold car that you see everybody driving all throughout the entire city. That every has the monotone vehicle that everybody sees and all the colors that everybody usually drives. Nah, this is a green, and not just green, not the dark Xbox kind of green. We're talking about somewhere between lime and Green Lantern Power Ring green, somewhere in that range. So, to make a long story short, if this person were to be in a, I don't know, Mall of America or King of Prussia Mall, and they parked their car, it would be pretty easy to spot it amongst the monotone vehicles that are around. And this car parks on the front side of my house, so I would open my windows and I could see it right through the door, right out the window. And it was this green that just hits you like, oh my goodness, it's clearly that car is parked there. Now, I didn't necessarily notice it for a while there because all the teachers parking, all the parents picking up their kids from school across the street. So I didn't necessarily notice that it was parked there until I had to come back a day or so with the kids. And I think it was a Friday that I noticed this. Now, granted, I'm talking to you now on February 11th, 2025. I noticed this car parking when I brought the kids home. It must have been late December, Christmas time, maybe a little bit before that. So I, again, dismissive of it because, well, it's Christmas time and people are visiting, and there's a apartment complex not far around, so maybe they just parked there and they got out of their car and they went to a Christmas party or they were staying for a while. And it didn't really dawn on me to really think anything of it. And then one day turned into a weekend, and a weekend turned into a week, and then Christmas break shows up and it's still there. I'm not really thinking anything of it. And then Happy New Year. Wow, it's here still. It must have been an extended vacation. Not thinking too much of it. And then I sort of forget about it for about a week. Meanwhile, it's still there. Like I'm conscious of it being there. I could see it out of the corner of my eye when I leave to go take the kids to school, when I come back in at night after um, just going to the store or something. It's there. And so we're talking now mid January. This car is still just sort of sitting there. Now, granted, you would be sort of obsessed with something if it was, let's say, on the other side, or the dark side of the moon, as I like to put it, on the side of the house that's It doesn't have the sidewalk, but kind of out of the way, sort of out of sight, out of mind, if it makes any sense. And I probably wouldn't pay it as much attention, but it's right in the front of the house every time I open the windows. And more so when I look out my bedroom window, I can see this car. It seems like it's in perfect line with my bedroom window. So I open up the window and I can just look straight out, and what do I see? I see this green car sitting there. And I'd be on my way to bed, 11, somewhere between 10 and 12 during the weekend, and I'm looking out the window and the car's still there. Like, oh my goodness. All right, I just find it interesting that this vehicle just seems to have found a home there. Okay, just gotta deal with it. Now we're talking mid-January. I don't know, somewhere between Martin Luther King's birthday and I don't know, maybe January 24th, somewhere in that neighborhood. It was somewhere in that time frame, between the 15th and the 24th, somewhere in there. I go to look out my window on a weekend, and the car's still there, of course. And I just sort of go, okay, it is what it is. And then the next morning, I had to take my mother to dialysis. Car's still there. Come back after dropping her off at dialysis, and the individual who owns that vehicle is standing in front of what would be, like I said, the direct line of sight from my bedroom to his vehicle, and he's got all his doors open. It's crazy. All four doors are open, and the trunk is open, and it's sort of like he's airing out the car. And as he's sitting there, he's smoking a cigarette, and I'm just taking a look at him as I'm walking into the house, and I try to catch his eye as I'm doing this, sort of like, okay, I've been watching you for a while, and now I'm looking at you just sort of being very, very comfortable, just sort of sitting in front of my house doing like, I don't know, venting out your car. And I'm just like, if that's what you're doing, you could go across the street where I live next to a pharmacy. I mean, huge parking lot over there. People do that all the time when they're getting ready to race. Not that I'm saying that that's what they're doing, but they're getting ready to race and they just sit back and they hang out over there and at the convenience store, the Wawa, a little bit farther down. Nothing says he couldn't have done that, especially during the day. Nobody would have said anything. Fast forward to that night after I saw him airing out his car. He's gone for probably 4 or 5 hours. Maybe went to work, did something, I don't know. And he comes back and he parks there and he goes again. I'm starting to notice this coming and going because, like I said, it was a Saturday, so I could see him moving back and forth after I got done taking my mom to dialysis. Later that night, still, we're talking much later. It's like I'm just about to go to sleep. And it's, I don't know, 10, 11, 11:30ish. And I open up the window just to see if that car's still there. Of course it is. And it wasn't just still there, apparently. It just pulled up. And the guy gets out of the car and locks his doors. And then I see him running across the street. So now, what I do with my infinite wisdom is I run real quick and go to the front door, open up the front door, and just curious to see, because now I'm finally seeing him go somewhere. So I'm watching, and I see him go across the street, and then he continues to go, and I'm like, oh, he must be going somewhere. And then I notice that there is an apartment complex past a gas station on the other side of the street, and he goes straight for it. And then it hit me. It absolutely hit me. I now know why this guy parks here. It makes perfect sense now. What he's doing is the apartment complex across the street is it's a pretty nice one. Got some nice apartments over there, but it's lacking one major element, and that is it doesn't have very good parking. It's a small parking lot for a really big complex, and the spaces are really kind of limited. And as a result of that, whatever this guy is doing between, I don't know, I'm going to say 6 p.m. and 11 p.m., he is in no position to get a parking space at his apartment complex. So as a result, he parks in the closest place that doesn't have one of those signs, will tow at owner's expense, which, of course, if you were to leave your car overnight at the pharmacy, that's what they say on the sign. So rather than take that risk, he parks in front of my house where it's just as simple to do. And I feel good about it because now I understand what he's doing and I get it now. And I clap my hands and I tip my hat and I applaud him and I say, hey, you know what? That is not a bad idea. You know that you can see that you're in a spot where there's really nothing going on. It's on a corner. There's a nice little safe spot. There's a big light there. You're parked near a house. Nobody's going to mess with your car. 9 times out of 10, nobody should mess with it. And he just runs home. If I was in his situation, I think that's exactly what I would do as well. And again, I tip my hat and I applaud your brilliance, and it was a good decision. Excellent choice. Next, there is an Acme supermarket that I have decided that I will never, ever, ever go to again. Is it the entire franchise? Is it the entire company? No. It's one specific store. Just one. Now, is that inconvenient for my life? Now, admittedly, as far as where I'm at, there's one, two, three Acme's within striking distance. One that's relatively close to my house, which is one that I would use more often than not. Now, I had gone to the one that was and then there's four. There's another one that's a little farther off. But for convenience purposes of what I had to do, the one that's farther off sometimes works in my advantage because it's in a location that I have to frequent on I'm not going to say I go there all the time, but my doctor's office is over there, and because my back, I have to go in that direction to go to that Acme every once in a while. And a particular day that I'm going to speak of, which is the reason why I won't go to a particular Acme. Now, I was just on my way coming back from my doctor's office, and I needed to pick up some groceries. And since I was in that area, I went to the one Acme. Jump in there; it's beautiful. There's no. I will give you this disclosure. Um, this Acme that I went to that I was pleased with is not in Philadelphia, so there is no Philly soda tax, which was part of the reason why I wanted to go there. Picked up a couple of sodas at a extreme difference in price, but I also had to buy a few other things. Bought some milk, bought some other stuff. Then I went home. Go through the store. Well, let me talk about the store. I go in the store, get everything I need. go to my self checkout because I love it. Because I've said it before, if Wawa gave me no skills except for one, the skill of being a cashier is what they gave me. They gave me all aspects of being a cashier, and I tell you, I thank them if for nothing else that I've carried with me for my entire life. I will always thank them for my cashier skills because I know how to bring up stuff quickly and move on. So the self checkout is my friend because there's plenty of times where I understand if you're standing at a register all day long, you might be tired. I've done it. I also understand that some people just simply are not as fast at the cash register as others, and I was one of the faster people. I wasn't the fastest. That would be Sarah Buck, great lady, fastest cashier I've ever seen in my life. I'm so glad that she worked with me. But now, as far as other people, I definitely had an advantage, and I was fairly good. I'm not going to say, like I said, I wasn't the best, but I was strong, and I could definitely get people in and out. Having said that, I understand a term that we used to use in the store to determine who was the fastest register cashier at the store at the Wawa that I worked at, and all Wawa. It's called scan rate, which is how quickly you can take an item and scan it into the system. Now, scan rate is what we use to judge how fast a cashier was, because the faster they can scan the items, the faster they can collect the money and give back the change. And a lot of times when I go into a store, I'm scanning for scan rate. I'm looking at the cashiers, no matter how long their line is, because there's been plenty of times when I've seen a cashier that had two people in their line, but they were really, really, really slow. And then there was times when I'd see a person who had 10 people in their line, but they're just boom, 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 scanning stuff quickly, and they're able to move stuff right down the line. And I'll go to that person rather than the person who was two because the person with a 10 is actually moving quick. Now, back to Acme. I go to the self checkout, I get everything I want, or so I thought, and I leave. I go home. I have some milk. I have probably an hour before I have to go get the kids from school. And one of them actually had what was it? They had, was it track practice? Yes, I believe it was track practice. Or was it music? It was one of the two, and I knew that I had a little extra time in order to pick up the kids. After I got home, I discovered that, of course, I forgot something, and the one thing I forgot was it was something that I needed, and I couldn't not have it, so I had to go get it, and it was bread. And I was like, I gotta get this bread. I got to. I can't not get it. Because if I don't get it now, it's going to be a pain and I'm going to absolutely have to get it on the way back. So since I have the time, I'll just go stop at this Acme, which I've done from time to time because it is convenient to go to because it's right around the kid's school. So rather than go to the one that was closer to me, I had to go out anyway, so I might as well use the one that's by the area in which I was going to go, right? Makes sense. All seems to make sense until I actually did it. Then no longer does it make any sense. But here it is. I go into this Acme and I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, a little bit of a security gate. Not that big a deal. Some of these stores in Philadelphia are doing that now to make sure that people go in one way and leave a different way so that they don't try to steal anything. I kind of get that. I go into the store, I'm moving around, I go get my bread. 2 loaves, to be specific. That's all I got. 2 loaves of bread. I had to walk across the store to go get it. Now, I only have 2 loaves of bread. I am definitely not going to go to a cashier no matter what. If I only have 2 loaves of bread, I'm going to take them to the self checkout 100 times out of 1,000. Other way around, 1,000 times out of 1,000 times, I'm going to self checkout if I have less than 5 items. Absolute. There's no question. Will not go to a cashier. Sorry. Just not going to do it. And as I go to the self checkout, I'm noticing something a little bit funny. Now, usually the self checkout has a employee there to monitor, and there's an employee there. But it also has specifically assigned an armed security guard. Armed security guard at the self checkout. I'm like, what? I just want to get 2 loaves of bread. That's all I want. Just 2 loaves of bread. So I proceed to scan my 2 loaves of bread. And I almost forget to get my receipt. And I go back and I grab it. And I notice something. There's like a gate, a clear gate that is sitting in front of the exit for the self checkout. Now, normally self checkout is sort of isolated, and it's you have that space where you can go in, and then sometimes it's sort of boxed in, so you can. So if you're in there, you're in there, and if you're not in there, you're not in there. But this had that boxed in thing, but then there was a clear plastic gate, probably, if I had to guess, about 3 feet high. So if one was to sort of try to jump over the gate, you would be noticed. Not to mention, probably shot by the armed security guard that's standing there. Shot over a loaf of bread. What is going on here? But anyway, as I get ready to try to exit after paying for my 2 loaves of bread, which by the way were like $6, $6, 2 loaves of bread for $3 each, and you have an armed security guard. So I'm not saying this like this to try to help you break it down, but I'm just trying to understand it myself. Now, I get to this impenetrable gate with the security guard who's got his hand real close to his hip with the gun. And I'm like, okay, what's up here? And I'm trying to get out of here. You can see I just paid, and I'm just wanting to leave. All I want to do is leave. Now, he then tells me, you got to take your receipt and you got to scan it. And I'm like, what? You got to scan your receipt. Oh, so I take my receipt and there's a barcode on the bottom of it. Now, apparently, you got to take that barcode and you got to scan the little Scantron thing on the gate, which apparently is connected to the cash registers, my Wi-Fi or something like that, which will tell the gate that this receipt came from this register and all items were paid for, and then the gate will open. Now, of course, my receipt's wrinkled because I grabbed it, and then I'm trying to straighten up as best I can so I can scan it so I can get out of this place, right? And of course, I'm having a difficult time, and finally the armed guard takes my receipt and he rubs it 3 or 4 times, and finally I'm able to get out. Now, this whole time, I feel that I'm being held in this place against my will. let's say, for instance, let's say I forgot my wallet, which is a story that I'm going to tell in a different episode of story. I actually had an incident where I forgot my wallet very recently, and I had to leave and go get it. I'll tell that story at a different time. But let's say that was the incident that happened, and now I can't pay for the stuff that I'm there. How am I supposed to get out? Is the security guard going to let me go back out the way, the entrance way, and then go a different direction so I could exit the store? Or would they assume that perhaps I was stealing something and would not allow me to proceed out of the store? These are the questions that come to my mind. It's like, because security minded thinking, it's like, well, you came to self checkout, you saw that there was a guard here and there's a gate that you couldn't get out, and you were trying to steal whatever you were trying to steal and go, but now all of a sudden you magically don't have your wallet. But you're going to leave some stuff, but you're going to take something with you, is the first thought that would come to my mind. I would then need to search you before you left. He says, I don't trust that you're leaving without paying and coming back to get these other items. I think you're just stealing something and you're going to just run away. That's what my security mind immediately goes to. So now I'm asking myself the question, how would that play out? How would that play out if I forgot my wallet like I did in the other store? As I'm going through this in my mind, I'm asking myself, that just seems like it's going to be a problem. And all I wanted to get was 2 loaves of bread for $6. Is that worth me getting searched by an armed security guard so I can get my wallet and pay for the thing if I forgot my wallet? And in my mind, the answer is 100% no. I don't believe in any way that it would be worth my time to do that. And so, the simple solution that I came up with is kind of like the solution that I have for any situation where I go to a store and items are locked up behind glass that requires assistance from an employee for me to get. And that is, if you lock it up logically, like my thinking is real simple. Like if I'm in my house and I lock the door, it's because I don't want people from off the street to come into my house. So if you lock up an item while in the store, kind of like my thought process is like a museum, they don't want you to just go and take the 5,000 year old ancient Egyptian sculpture. They don't want you to do that. That's why they lock it up. So I assume that if you lock something up, you don't want me to have it. And if you don't want me to have it, I'm not going to ask for it because you wouldn't have locked it up if you didn't theoretically not want me to buy it. I know some people are going to be like, well, hey, you could still just ask the person and they can just kind of do it for you. But that requires an element of trust. It's just too much in my mind if I want to go and get some cough medicine for a kid and run back home and give it to the kid, especially since I live right across the street from a pharmacy. Why would I want to go into a position like that? Um, Tony Saragusa said it one time on an interview, slightly unrelated, that he went to a nightclub one time and he was patted down. And immediately the thought crossed his mind, well, do I really want to go into this place that I have to be patted down to make sure that I'm not bringing a weapon? So, do I really want to go to a store that is going to lock things up and I have to hope that I can find somebody to unlock it, and or this case scenario with this athlete, do I want to be held necessarily against my will for $6? Because typically speaking, if I wanted to just drop the stuff and leave, you could just still drop it and walk right out the front, no big deal. But between the armed guard and the gate, if you tried to backtrack, it would look funny. Just my security mind working as a former corrections officer. Why are you leaving out of the back? Is there something not right with this situation? I would question every little aspect of it. So rather than have to experience that situation and put people in a very uncomfortable or difficult position, I am electing to never go to this particular Acme again. Now, hindsight being 2020, most supermarkets have not a franchise, but individual owners who own each individual store. Sometimes they own multiple stores, but still, they're not part of one giant corporate conglomerate. They're sort of franchising the rights to be an Acme or a ShopRite or whoever. And as many of those supermarket types that they were able to purchase and own for themselves, they own the stores. They belong to them. So the individual makes the choice in order to do certain things. Now, in the um, in the world we live in today, like I said, I had more choices than just that Acme. And now, granted, I could have gone with different Acme, which may or may not have been owned by the same company. Or heck, I could have gone to Giant or ShopRite or somebody else, and that would take business away from them. And that's not to say that other people couldn't do the very same thing too. And if people were thinking like me on a lot of that same level, you might even go as far as to say, well, in this day and age, I don't even have to walk into your store, which would mean I could just order all the stuff that I got from your store online and have it delivered to my house. And I don't even have to use your store. I can use anybody in order to get the products that I want. So there's just another reason why I question their decision to do what they do. I understand they try to stop shrink, which is impossible because for whatever they think the customers are taking, I guarantee you the employees are taking more. That's just the way it sort of works. But I don't know. I just know that I'll never go to that store again as long as I live. It was a very drawn out way to put it, but that is the story for that one. Finally, this has got to be the one, like I said. Those other two certainly would have been headliners for individual shows had I separated them. There's no doubt in my mind. But now, as a direct result, I think this one is the headliner of this. And maybe if I go back and do sort of all-star episode of my stories, these 38 story episodes that I've done, I think that it's very possible that this one could very easily make the top five, if not maybe even, dare I say, top three of stories that I've told on this show. Because this is a doozy. Because normally I would be like, well, a lot less likely to share something like this, especially considering the time frame that it happened at. because originally this story actually happened in January, and it seems like probably roughly a month ago. But like I said, I think that I'm in the clear because everything that went down in this story essentially was covered up and everything was cool. Here we go. I have to start the story by saying I had my orange, not just orange, cayenne orange track hit in a parking lot at Giant on my mother's birthday in September. That was September 2024. Now, because of my surgery and because of um, physical therapy, I was having a difficult time getting my tracks to the body shop in order to get it fixed. Now, granted, it was totally drivable, and the damage that was on the tracks was noticeable to me. But most other people who looked at it didn't even notice it. Like my daughters would go in and out of the car, and they didn't even have any clue that there was any damage. They just opened up the back door, got in, didn't even think about it. But of course, for me, it was bothering me, driving me nuts. And finally, um, between, like I said, the surgery, the injury, um, even the death of my aunt, I had to postpone getting my car to the body shop in order to get fixed. But finally, I did it at the end of the year of 2024, literally because I wanted to put all the crazy stuff that was happening in 2024 behind me. And the last phase of that craziness would have been getting this car fixed. And so, literally on December 31st, I took it to the body shop. So I knew that when it came back, it was going to be a new year, and all that other stuff was staying in 2024 right where it belonged. And so I get the vehicle, and I'm driving down the road doing all the stuff that I'm supposed to do with it. And I believe I was on my way to, for the first part of this nightmare. I want to say was it to New Jersey to see my uncle that time? May have been. It just feels like it might have been. But that detail is irrelevant because the first thing that happened was I ended up getting behind a dump truck. What else would I get behind when I'm driving a rental car, right? Because in order to get my car fixed, I had to get a rental car. And here I am in this rental car, and I'm now driving behind a dump truck. Obviously, this dump truck is full of stones, and little stones keep popping off of this dump truck, and I can't pass this thing for the life of me. There's no way I could. And I'm literally watching, and I see that one of those stones popped off, and it literally put a little chip in the windshield. I saw this chip forming. It was just a small one. Now, with my contract with the rental car company, I was not concerned in any way because the rental car company said it doesn't matter where the injury or damage is to the vehicle, it just has to be anything in the size. I think they said it was the size of any dent the size of a golf ball. I had to then tell them about. So that little chip in the windshield was not the size of a golf ball. So I just said, all right, I'm not even going to mention it. I'm going to go on with my life. Keep going. Now, things keep going smoothly, and it snows. Not that it snows 12 feet, but it snows enough, a couple inches. And The ground is more than covered, and so they had to brine and salt and sand all the streets. They think that we're in, I don't know, some combination of St. Paul, Minnesota, and Buffalo or something like that. Just load the whole streets to the point where there's literally more salt and sand on the road than there actually is snow. Probably for 2 inches of snow, we probably put 10 inches of salt on the ground. So this kind of works out to my benefit because this monotone colored car, I believe it was gray, was now covered in salt. And my mind is like, okay, I'm not going to do anything over the top with this. I'm not going to try to wash it or nothing like that. Because the only thing I got to do is make sure it's got 3/4 of a tank of gas when I get it back. That's it. So I leave the salt on the car. Now, this is important. This is very important to the story. I don't clean the salt off the car. We've got one little chip in the windshield, but I didn't clean the salt off the car. So you can kind of not even notice the chip unless you're looking for it. Because the only reason why I noticed it was because I saw the stone hit the car. But now we're moving on. And I got maybe 2 days before they call me to tell me that my car is ready. So I don't know what's going on yet. And I'm just hungry after doing some stuff. And I was going to go grab something to eat real quick because I hadn't eaten that day. And which, of course, is not a good habit. You should eat at least 3 or 4 small meals a day, as the gym rat would be. Now, like I used to do, I'd eat 3 or 4, or maybe even 5 little meals and snacks. Don't do that anymore, which is sad. I probably only eat maybe once or twice a day, which is not what you're supposed to do. I do not recommend you following the example that I'm setting now. But remember what I did as a gym rat. Listen to my working out episode early in the archives on Spotify. I definitely listen to that if you want to try to get yourself into shape. Really, you should. But I digress. Um, I'm hungry. And so what do you do when you're hungry? You go get something to eat. I go to a drive through of a KFC. And this is where the ugly part of the story gets. I'm in the drive through. I just have a little bit of cash on me. I'm not, it's like the typical, not quite payday yet. I have just a couple bucks, and I'm trying to do the math in my head how much I can get with the money that I've got. And I decided that I was going to get a fry and some chicken strips, chicken tenders from KFC. I got enough to do that and still be able to move to the next step. I'm probably talking to the lady at the drive-through for maybe a good 5 minutes as I'm trying to do the math in my head and decide what I want. She's giving me prices and she's real nice about it. And we're working it out, and I finally decided that I'm definitely going to get the chicken strips, and I'm definitely going to get the fries. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go. I'm not going to get anything to drink because I actually had one of my sodas with me in the car, so I wasn't going to be bothered with it. Just needed the food, and I needed it because I was whew, to that point where like I was famished. I probably should have eaten much, much sooner. And I then move up in line. Car pulls up behind. Lady inside the car orders whatever she's going to order. Now, mind you, and I'm going to put this out there on the record. I was not too far away from physical therapy about getting released. So I'm still doing it, and I still had some pain, but not much, in my arm from positions that I was sitting in. And this vehicle was different than my tracks, so I didn't have my arm support that I like to have. And again, I retired from the Department of Corrections as a result of a back injury. And of course, the seats were not as comfortable as I would have liked them in my track. Excuse me. And so this lady is ordering her food, and then all of a sudden, I just feel a smack, a good one, that jolted my back, went all the way through me. And I'm going to have to say that my back I was treating it, doing some medication over the last month, which had neutralized it. So it wasn't as bad, but it still hurt. As the doctors would say, where's your pain level between 0 and 10? Prior to medicating, I was probably walking around at a 7 since uh, mm, I would say I was at a 7 since easily February of 2023. And now I was feeling about a 4 or 5. So there was a significant improvement to the medication. Now, that jolt went so through me that my 4 to 5 went to a 9. And my thought wasn't even about the pain that was going through my back. I immediately said to myself, this is a rental car. And this chick just hit me from behind in the rental car. Like, are you kidding me? The rental car was just hit from behind. Now, in my mind, it's like I have all this stuff that I got to deal with. I got to pick up the kids. Now I got to try to explain to these people how now I got into this accident from somebody who hit me in behind. Now, in my mind, I wasn't thinking, you hit me from behind, my back is already hurt, now it's hurting even more. Maybe I'm going to sue you. That wasn't in my head. The only thing in my head was, you just hit me from behind in a rental car that I have to take back, that is going to now have potentially all kinds of damage on the rear bumper. And I'm going to be responsible for paying for that damage. And I get out of the car and this lady gets out of her car. She goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just going through my money and I dropped it and I took my foot off the brake and stepped on the gas and banged into you. I'm sorry. Is everything okay? Is it all good? Are you feeling all right?" And the first words out of my mouth as I was transforming into the Red Hulk, which is just what I do. And the thing that really bothered me is I hadn't changed into the Red Hulk for quite a while. I was feeling very calm and not anxious and relaxed, and the anger and the urge to kill was going down very much until this incident. And the Red Hulk started to emerge. And I immediately told this lady, rather than grab her by the throat and choke slam her, I said, everything's not okay. This is a rental car. You just hit my rental car. Like, it's one thing for you to have hit my car, which would have made me aggravated enough, but you hit not my car, but a car that I'm responsible for that somebody loaned me, a rental car. And she was like, "Oh, is everything? It looks okay. I'm okay. You're okay. We're good, right?" At this point in time, I could already see my hands and feet starting to swell and turning red. My feet are breaking through my shoes, and I can already see the fire beginning to form as I'm just heating up changing into the Red Hulk, I know that at this point in time, there is nothing good going to happen if I continue to speak to this woman. I also know that there's nothing that is going to be good if I stay in this drive through lane getting my food. I just can't do it because she's right behind me. At any moment, when I turn into the Red Hulk, I'm going to rip the door off of her car, pull her out, and literally Hulk smash until she ends up a pile of goo. And I know that that is not a good thing. And I can feel the point where it's not becoming mental, but it's becoming actual in my mind, where like this is going to happen. I am going to hurt somebody, and it's going to be her. So the only thing that I can do at this point in time is I just left. I left. Like she was good with her stuff, and I know that I'm just animated. Like I can see that I couldn't tell you if there was any damage because going back to the salt that was on the car, you couldn't see anything. The salt covered up everything in the back. So if there was anything, you couldn't tell because of the salt. And I just I got in the car. I just I put it in drive, and rather than flipping around and like t-boning her, I just drove off. And as I drove off, I started seeing my hands change from red back to their normal tone. The fire started to dissipate from my being, and my feet started changing from red back to normal. And I'm no longer the Red Hulk. And I'm just driving down the road, and I like this is for the best. This is absolutely for the best because I don't believe that there was a scenario that was going to be good if I stayed in that drive through of that KFC for even a millisecond longer than I did. It was not going to end well. It wasn't. And as opposed to allowing that scenario to play out, I did the rational thing and just left my food at the drive-through and just left because there was no way that it was going to end well if I didn't just leave. And that's what I did. I left. And as a result of that, a couple days later, I took the rental car back. Apparently, they didn't care about the chip in the windshield. Clearly, the damage in the back was there was none because I filled it up with 3/4 of gas that I needed to fill it up with, and I got the money, even though it was an insurance claim. I still had to put a hold on my card, and they sent me the money back for the hold. So apparently there was no issues at all. So at the end, it all kind of worked out. They didn't need to know that their car got rear-ended. They had no idea, and now it's been a month, and it's easy to say that probably 4 or 5 other people have driven that car since. So whatever will be, and it's not on me. All right, I'm going to ring the bell. The main event is over, but I'm going to go straight into the spear of the week, and it's pretty obvious who the spear of the week obviously is. It was that lady who rear-ended me. There's just no one else it could be. I mean, she might even be, and this is in January. It's very possible that that woman could easily have been the spear of the year. Just very possibly, because that instant, I can truthfully say, I have not been that mad in a long, long time. Like, it took me at least a week in order to digest just how mad I really was at that moment, and to really fully appreciate that there was going to be a bad situation happen if I'd stayed. It would have gotten ugly. I'm assuming that handcuffs and police would have been involved had I stayed any longer than I did. I'm putting it out there because I'm pretty sure that that's what would have happened. And by leaving, it turned out that everything worked its way out. But without question, I would definitely love to spear that woman. And I'm not sure if I want to do the Roman Reigns kind of spear or do I want to do like the Achilles kind of spear and throw the spear right through her chest. I mean, that kind of spear, some kind of spear, any kind. But without a doubt, the lady who rear-ended my rental car in January, the spear of the week. Whew. Well, this is my final pick of the football season, and it was the Super Bowl. And my pick was wrong. Kansas City did not win a close game. They were demolished by the Eagles, which is incredibly surprising to me. It is for a lot of reasons. And another person, in fact, I could almost give another spear of the week. In fact, I'm going to go that far. In the middle of my picks, I'm going to stop everything and say, hey, you know what? It's a double spear of the week. Because, granted, the Eagles won 40-22, I believe it was. Now, I missed a great deal of the game. I wasn't really paying attention because I didn't really care about either of those two teams. But the idea that the second spear of the week goes to the defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, Vic Fangio. Why? Why am I giving him a spear of the week? He took apart the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, he did that with what I think is a all right team. He had Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, Justin Smith, um, Ray McDonald on the 49ers. He had literally the best linebacker combination you could ever have against a team of the Baltimore Ravens that had virtually no offense. None. And he couldn't stop them from beating the 49ers in their first ever Super Bowl loss. Vic Fangio, I hope when they hand you your Super Bowl ring that you slip and break your hip. And I say that as a 49er fan, and I think that all 49er fans will agree that if he could dismantle the Kansas City Chiefs with their actual offense like that, with a defense that was, I'm going to say they're okay. They were good. People I know, Eagles fans, are like, "Oh, the defense is great." There were Hall of Famers on the 49er defense that Vic Fangio had that he couldn't defeat Joe Flacco in the Baltimore Ravens. How is that possible when you have literal Hall of Famers on the defense and you can't stop Joe Flacco, but you could defeat the Hall of Famers on offense for Kansas City? Oh no, Vic, you need to get Spear of the Week too. Totally changed my picks. And on that note, I am really glad that I am done with the NFL picks for this year, and I will be starting as of next week a new segment. And I'm going to think about whether or not I'm going to do the picks of the week, the picks of the year next year, because I feel that I had a nice run. Was over 50%. I had won more games than I lost, so that's a good thing. But tragically, like I said, that Vic Fangio thing just makes me sick. I'm sorry to all the Eagles fans that are friends of mine, but if your defense is good, but the defense that he had with the 49ers, they had Hall of Famers on that defense, and they could not beat Joe Flacco. Same dude. Really? That's all I'm going to say. Really? Ugh. All right. I'm over that. Not really. First ever Super Bowl loss for the 49ers. Never won one since. Won five in a row, and then all of a sudden they spiral down and lose the next three. I'm not taking Vic Fangio personally. Not at all. Okay. It's time for the end of the show. And this show is going even longer than I thought it was going to go. It's interesting. That's what happens when I really get into a story episode. I find myself really going into it. And I thought so because this episode particularly had three stories that were very passionate for me. And speaking of passionate, the piece of art that you see right in front of you is a very, very new one. It's called Twilight Path. Just made it very recently. Um, and it was literally just hanging up on the wall. And I said, you know what? Let me use this one right now. I didn't even laminate the little card for it yet. I'm going to do that today. That's how new this one is. But I'm excited about it, and I think it's a decent piece. It really is. But as far as trying to give myself some peace and give yourself some peace, join our group, the LIP Facebook group. Join us. There's always room for one more. And when you get in there, you'll get to listen to some interesting things that I post every once in a while. You'll see how relaxing it is, more calming. You won't turn into the Red Hulk like I do on occasion because of the crazy people who are around me. Just listen to something that you can find on our Facebook group, the LIP Facebook group. Or check me out on Instagram at Philip Henderson 5102. I'm out there on X and Twitter. I do some stuff. I pop out there every once in a while with one of these reels. Every once in a while, you see me out there. But it is what it is, and I love this. I thought this show was exactly what it needed to be, and I'm looking forward to next week's show. It's a specialty show. Because, like I said, yeah, today, as I'm recording, it's February 11th, 2025. This story episode is going to be released on February 15th, 2025. The next week is going to be February 22nd, 2025. And I immediately looked at the date and said, okay, forget the fact that it's the year 2025, but it's February 22nd. In other words, it's 222. So I've decided to do an entire show devoted, almost like Sesame Street, to the number 2. I've gone down a list of things that I personally experienced and things that I've dealt with throughout life and just fun stuff that I've done. And they all have one thing in common. They are either the second thing I've done or it's something that is too related that I have or have done or have seen. And that's what this whole episode is going to be about. It's going to be about twos. And so, on that note, it's time for the words of wisdom. Now, usually I have my placard in front of me and I have words of wisdom ready to go. But this week, the words of wisdom that I have for you all is literally about stories. I thought about it when I was just driving home after dropping the kids off today. And that is simply this: no matter what you might think, every one of us has a story to tell. No matter what you might think, every one of us has a story to tell. You may think it's boring. You may think it's ho hum. I guarantee you that if you told your story, somebody would be interested, intrigued, inspired, maybe even get a laugh out of it. So, once again, the words of wisdom are everybody has a story to tell. On that note, my story number 38 is over, and my name is Phil, and you've just listened to The Lib.